Hey friends! So, I've been sitting here with a question stuck in my brain. Sink or float? Sink or float? You want to know why I'm stuck with the question sink or float? Well, earlier today I was taking a walk. It's a beautiful snowy day here where I live, in Northeast America. So I decided to take a walk by the river. I found a great spot to stop and take a break. Watch the ducks and even have a snack. An apple I'd packed in my bag. Such a beautiful day, such a delicious snack, that I had to sing a song about it.
Beautiful day. I love apples and ducks. I'm singing by the river. I just love apples and ducks. Oh, what a beautiful snowy
As I was singing, the craziest things started to happen. My melodious singing was attracting the nearby birds, almost like a princess in a cartoon. I got so distracted by the birds that I tossed my apple and it landed in the river. Once I had noticed that my apple was gone, I couldn't figure out where it went. Did it sink down in the river? Or could it have floated away? Sink? Float? Who knows? So, that's why the big question is sink or float. Did my apple sink to the bottom of the river where I couldn't see it anymore? Or did it float away downstream? Then maybe it got stuck in some muck or went over the waterfall that's down there. Maybe a duck ate it. I don't know. But either way, it definitely sank or floated away. How am I going to figure out which happened? That sounds like a question for a scientist. Let's call Dr. Marvin Mist. I bet he can tell us. Hi, Dr. Mist. It's Betty. Oh, you discovered a new element? Is it the element of surprise? Yeah. So I have a question for you. My apple fell in the river today, and I want to know if it sank to the bottom or if it floated. You can help me by doing an experiment? Whoa! Okay, sounds great. We'll see you soon. Let's go visit Dr. Mist. He's going to show us an experiment. Come on.
Hey, you glad you're here today? Let's have some fun and seize the day. Here it's safe to feel it's part of being you. Let's write our own adventures and laugh, make, think, try, learn, fail, grow. Now we're ready, set, go.
I'm Marvin Mist, your friendly local scientist. If there's something you need to know, my experiments give the down low. Hey friends, what do you think? Working on my new theme song. I think it's going to be a banger. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I am in fact Dr. Marvin Mist, your friendly local scientist. And today we're going to do an experiment about sink or float. So, the reason I wanted to do an experiment instead of just giving Betty the answer was because I, as we know, am a scientist, and I always use something called the scientific method. That's something that all scientists use to figure out questions. Here's a secret fact. You don't have to be a grown-up to be a scientist. Anybody can be a scientist using the scientific method. Now, it might sound complicated, but we've already done the first two steps. Step 1 in the scientific method, ask a question. So our question is, will it sink or will it float? It's a great question. Step 2, gather information. Betty told me she was eating an apple. She was going to eat an apple. She threw it and it landed in the river. That's a body of water. So that's the information we need. Step 1, ask a question. Step 2, gather information. Now, step 3 is to form a hypothesis. Now that's a big fancy word, hypothesis. But it's just a fancy word for making a guess. So you make a guess like, I think the apple sank to the bottom of the river, or I think the apple floated and went downstream over a waterfall. So you use what you know. I know that apples are kind of heavy, not so heavy like a rock, but heavier than a feather. And a lot of things will go to the bottom of water if they're heavy. So my guess is that the apple sank to the bottom of the river, and that's why Betty couldn't see it. That is my hypothesis, that the apple sank. So that's step 1, ask a question. Step 2, gather information. Step 3, form a hypothesis. Now comes the fun part, perform an experiment. aka try it out. So we're gonna try it out together, friends. Really, all we're gonna use is this container of water, regular everyday water from the sink, similar to what's in the river, and we're gonna drop some apples in. All right, now, when performing an experiment, you wanna be very safety conscious. So I'm gonna put on my goggles. Okay, goggles are good. We've got some water. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And I have my red apple, just like Betty was eating. So, on the count of 3, we're gonna drop it in and see what happens. Is it gonna sink to the bottom or float on top? 1, 2, 3! Holy wowie, it's floating! So it looks like this apple here is floating on the top of the water. Oh, very interesting. Now, I would like to record these results. That is the next step, step 5 in the scientific method. So, I've made some charts here to record our results. We used a red apple this time, and look, it floated. So, I'm going to go red apple. Did it sink? Nope, not at all. But it did float. So I'm going to circle that. Now we can show people what happened in our experiment. Now, as you might see, I have a green apple and a yellow apple here. That's because I was curious if the color of the apple makes a difference if it will sink or float. Let's find out. Okie dokie. Pardon me, red apple. Okay, let's do green next. Oh, you got a sticker on there. Make sure that doesn't affect our experiment. Green apple. 1, 2, 3. I wonder what your hypothesis is. Green, make a difference? Ready? Holy bungy, it floated! Look at that. Didn't matter if it was green or red, it still floats right on the top of the water. So, we're gonna report our result. Green did not sink, nope, but it did float. Okay, next we're gonna do our yellow apple. Here we go. Okay, make your hypothesis. Take your guess. I think it's going to float since the other apples floated. 1, 2, cowabunga! And it floated. My hypothesis was correct, but that doesn't matter. I learned something. Okay, look at that floating, floating, floating in the water. All right, now we can record that result here. Did it sink? It certainly did not sink, but it did float-a-rama. We're going to circle that. So we've recorded all of our results on the sheet, and we can show it to other people to share what we know. Now, I was also wondering if the size of the apple would make a difference. So I made sure to get a very large apple, big, my medium apple right here, yes, yes, and then this apple is very small. Oh, look, it's like the 3 bears. Large bear, medium bear, small bear. So, what do you think? Is the size of the apple going to make a difference? We know that the medium one is going to float. So we can already record that result here. Sink, nope. Float, yes. Now, my hypothesis is that the large, big size apple will sink. Why? It's a lot heavier, and heavy things sink. So let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3. Well, look at that. It floated. We got 2 floating apples in there. Let's record that result. Here we go. Did the large apple sink? No, sir, it floated. All right, that only leaves the small apple, which now, using what I know, I'm gonna guess it's gonna float, because it's small, and it's the same as the others, so let's see. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's also floating. Look at that happy family floating in the pool. Okay, now we can write. Did it sink? No, it did not. Did it float? Yes, it did. So, we have our answer about apples. No matter what, size, color, the apple will float. Now we know. But, for my own curiosity, I wanted to try a couple other fruits too. So, let's start with banana. What do you think? Well, my hypothesis is it's gonna sink because it's a different shape than the apples were, right? Doesn't really look like a floating shape so much to me. So, let's give it a try. Banana, sink, or float. 1, 2. Oh, my goggles. 1, 2, 2, 3. Well, in fact, the banana is floating, so I was wrong. The banana floats. So I'm gonna mark that down on my chart. Floating, very much not sinking. Okay, next, I wanted to try an avocado. Now, an avocado is pretty heavy and it's bumpy. So, my guess is that it's going to float because everything else has floated. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3. Oh, oh, it sank! It is sitting at the bottom of the water, not floating on the top. So, my hypothesis was wrong. An avocado will in fact sink. Oh, well, we gotta write that down. Holy moly, avocado does not float. No siree, it sinks, sinks, sinks. Okay, whoa, sinking avocado, I can't believe it. Now, my next fruit to try is an orange. Now, it's about the same size as the medium to small apple, but it's bumpy. I wonder. Now, this I think is probably going to float because it's lighter than an apple, so let's give it a try. Oh, goodbye, avocado. Thank you for sinking. Okay. 1, 2. Well, that orange definitely floats. Yep. Okay. Now, I wanted to try something else. On my chart, I drew an apple. I gotta record these results first, though. Let's see. Oranges do not sink. They float. Okay. Now, the last one, I'm gonna try peeling this orange and see if that makes any difference. What if it has a different reaction to the water without a peel? So I'm gonna peel it. We can fast forward this for your sake, okay? Oh, smells delicious. Now we've taken the peel off of our orange. Let's see if this makes any difference. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Do you see that? The orange, without a peel, has sunk to the bottom. Not to say you don't have a peel. You've got a lot of a peel, but you don't have your peel. Get what I'm saying? Ha ha, science. So, an orange without a peel will sink, while an orange with a peel will float. How about that, my scientist friends? Sink, 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 not float. So, we have our results here as well that we could share with our friends. Step 5 of the scientific method. You might be wondering why some of the fruits floated and some of them sank. Like the orange with a peel is floating, and the orange without a peel sank. The banana floated, the avocado sank. I can tell you the reason for that. Things all have density. The water has one density, and all of the things we put into it had a different density. Things like the orange with a peel are less dense than the water, so they float. Let me show you what I mean. This jar represents a less dense object. All these little pom-poms inside are like molecules, the stuff that makes up the orange. So this, say it's the orange with the peel, it is lots of space for those molecules to move around. They're not very close together. They're rocking and rolling, so it's less dense. These molecules can move around. Now, the orange without a peel is more dense. So that looks more like this inside. All the molecules, these pom-poms, are close together. They don't have space to move around. Look, they're not rocking or rolling. This is more dense than the water, so it sinks. The orange without a peel, more dense than water, it sinks. Orange with a peel, less dense than water, it floats. Also, the avocado, do you think it was more dense or less dense than the water? Well, it sank to the bottom, so we know that it's more dense than the water was. Now, how about the banana? Do we think the banana was more dense or less dense than the water? Well, it floated to the top, so the banana was less dense than the water. Anything that sinks or floats, it's because of density. The water has one density, this had less, so it floated. This had more, so it sank. It's all about those molecules and how close together they are. There we have it, friends. Betty's apple was less dense than the river water she threw it into. Now we can let her know the water probably took the apple, it floated it downstream, maybe over a waterfall. Let's let her know. But hey, thanks for being here today. Come do more science with me next time. Marvin Mist.
Thanks, Marvin. So, it turns out my apple probably floated away. I'm so glad that we did an experiment instead of just getting the answers. We learned the scientific method. 1, you ask a question. Did it sink or did it float? 2, gather some information. My apple fell in the river. 3, you make a guess or a hypothesis. I think it sank, or I think it floated. 4, perform an experiment. Drop some apples in some water and see what happens. 5, share your results. And my results show it definitely floated away. There's no way it sank to the bottom of the river. So, I guess it probably floated downriver and went over that waterfall nearby. Maybe a duck got a snack after all. Well, what an awesome day. We asked a big question, we learned something new, we got to hang out with Marvin, and the ducks got a snack. What an awesome day, friends. Let's do it again soon.